Okay. No, darling, the only thing you have to worry about tonight is the random share giveaway. Okay? Just a random share giveaway. Don't worry about anything else. I know you can't be in here, but yep. Oh, just how I see it. Things. I think it'll be interesting. It's a little bit more of a modern topic, but I think a lot of our viewers follow modern motocross too. So I think it'll be good. Yeah, the York Schwartman thing to him. I have to Bill on the phone this afternoon. So we have to get a hold of someone who's at Unadilla this weekend and maybe get them to get some interviews or some type of video for the show for next week. Write that down so I can, yeah, I'll get a hold of some, maybe Alex Moros. I know Alex Moros is there. Yeah, get a hold of him or call Carol, say hello, and see if we can get something from them. It'd be really good. Jordan, I didn't see the clock running down. You almost ready to go?
You're live.
Good evening, everyone. Let's get down to the starting line. I'll tell you a little bit more about what you're going to see on the show tonight. We've got a great next time try this video for you. Also in the Moto Showcase, a 1974 Cheney 400 Suzuki. We've got the Here's the Problem segment. We've got some great questions from there. What's it worth? A 1975 Husky Mikola replica. And in my Just How I See It segment, I'd like to know what you think about Jason Lawrence now saying he's coming out of retirement. We heard that, well, we didn't only hear it, we saw that Ryan Dungey did come out of retirement. He's been doing very, very well, finishing 5th and 6th every week in Nationals. Now we heard this week in the rumor mill that Jason Lawrence is going to come out of retirement. Jason Lawrence, I think a very, very talented young man who threw away a career, got into trouble with the law. But I want to know your feelings on also in the rumor mill. I'm hearing that Jeffrey Hurlings is throwing down the gauntlet with Eli Tomac for a one-on-one race somewhere here in America. Does anybody care about that? I would like to know your thoughts on that. Lawrence coming out of retirement, Hurling throwing down the gauntlet to Tomac. I want to know what your thoughts are on that. Please comment throughout the show. We're going to have all that and a whole lot more coming up in just a minute. Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Abadi. You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you, Jordan and Susie. Chelsea, for helping us put the show together. And I think we've got a pretty good one coming up for you. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, don't forget to comment on the show. If you're on YouTube, please comment Motion Pro. If you're on Facebook, comment, or I'm sorry, just share the show. That's it. You just share the show whether you're on Facebook, comment whether if you're on YouTube, comment Motion Pro. We will give away a sticker sheet like this in the show. Compliments of Vinco.com. The YouTube channel is going really well, but we could always use some help. Don't forget, go over to our YouTube channel and please subscribe. When you do, you'll get a little alert just like this. Tells you when we're live on YouTube. It's also a great way to watch the show because that's the way the pros are watching it. That's how the experts are watching it. They're sitting back on their big screen TV and commenting through their phone. It's a fabulous way to watch the show. And you can watch all the episodes that we've done in the past, including over 50 interviews that we've done from Vintage Motocross Radio. So please, enjoy the show any way you can, but on the big screen, commenting from your phone, that's a great way to do it as well. As always, I want to thank all of our sponsors, Motion Pro, Vintco, Racer X Magazine, Preston Petty Products, Full Circle Racing, Northwest Mako CZ, Sunrise Vapor Blasting, and of course, the International Motocross Museum.
In tonight's Next Time Try This segment, I want to talk to you about replacing some exterior crank seals in your bike. We all like it when we can replace the seal from the outside and not have to split the cases to do that, but there's some precautions that you should take before putting that seal in. Number one, if you have threads on the outside of your crank, which you probably will, you want to put a piece of duct tape over it or something just to protect the thread. You're not going to be there very long, but you don't want any damage on that thread. The object, of course, is to get the seal flush with this surface right here. You don't want it to go too deep inside and then hit the crank bearing that's in there. All you want to do is get it to this point, right where it's flush with the outside. Before I put the seal in, I take a little time and I put a little grease on it down where the crank is going to be rotating on it, and of course on the outside as well. You don't want to have a washer on there when you go to put it on that's the same size as the seal. I'll just demonstrate here on the old seal. This is the old seal that I took out. If you look, you can see that this piece that I'm going to use is the exact same size as the seal. You don't want that. You want to use something a little bit bigger, because what you want is that washer to hit this surface right here. You only want the seal to go so deep down on that seal surface. So let's begin by taking the seal and we'll slip it over the crank. Now, gently push it in there, keep an eye on it, make sure that you're even all the way around, just like that, because you want to go in, of course, squarely with that surface. We're going to put the larger washer on, just like this, and what I'm doing here is I'm going to use a couple of extra ones, just so I can hold it with this socket. Okay, you can use an old socket like this. Just make sure it's deep enough that it hits the washers here without hitting the end of your crank. Whether you use this, a much longer piece of pipe, or whatever it might be, plastic pipe is okay too. Whatever you're going to be using, you don't want it to hit the end of your crank. Now, I've got everything on there. The seal looks square. I'm going to gently tap that seal in. Making sure that my washer is over the edges of the seal. Because what I'm looking for, and I'll take this off just to show you for a second, I'm looking for this seal to go no deeper than the case, okay? I just want to get it right to where that seal is flush with the engine case. And there it is, nice and flush with the surface of the case. We didn't do any damage to the seal. Don't forget to take your tape off the end here of your crank when you're done. That's how you can put a seal in safely and securely, get it nice and flush to the case without doing any damage to the crank or any damage to the seal. Next time, try that.
In the Moto Showcase tonight, brought to you by Preston Petty, we have a very interesting bike sent to us by Joe Anderson from Colorado. Joe has sent in bikes before to us, and he's always got something special, and this one is no different. It doesn't disappoint. It's a 1974 Cheney Suzuki TM400. Jordan will go through the slides while I read to you a bit about what Joe did to this bike. This was built with an original Cheney TM400 Suzuki frame, and the engine was rebuilt using a 1975 TS400 full circle crank and a heavy external flywheel and CDI. It's got a 38mm carburetor and a custom one-off exhaust. Switched to a 520 chain and sprocket from the 525. It's got Yamaha wheels front and back, custom built seat base, foam, and cover. It's got a 76 Suzuki RM gas tank on it. It's got the original Koni GP aluminum finned rear shocks. It's got a 1974 YZ250A fork and triple clamp. It's got the original TM400 airbox, Suzuki RM400 fork guards. The bike weighs 202 pounds without gas. The power was much better with the TS400 model. It's very, very fast. This bike was built to look similar to the work Suzuki's of 1972, the RN400. I believe this bike right now is in the Moto Armory Museum in Illinois. Well, Joe Anderson, it's a very, very special bike. Thank you for sharing that with us here at the show. You always send in something very, very unique. I remember some Yamahas and CZs in the past. Joe, if you would like a coffee mug like this, compliments of Preston Petty products, I'd be happy to get you one, but you've done this a few times before. If you do not want a coffee cup, you can get some grips or some stickers, whatever you like, Joe. Just contact me and I'll get something out to you. Thank you again, Joe Anderson, for sending in that Suzuki. This week's Preston Petty special are 2 fenders and a jersey, just $135.94. These are in transgender white. I'm sorry, translucent. I always get those two things confused. Translucent white. 2 fenders and a jersey, just $135.95. Thank you, Paul Stannard. And here's the problem segment tonight. We've got a few questions for you. Jordan, what do we got up first? Jeff Kaminsky, what intake can I use to get a 36 millimeter carburetor to fit my 1974? Why stock intake is too small? You can do, Jeff, is get an intake manifold and not the reed. I don't think you need the reed because you have a reed in your bike, but the intake manifold, which is a little bit bigger on the 1975 MX250B. It's an MX250B, or you can go to the 76 YZ250C. Both have a prefix of 509, and they did come with a bigger carburetor than the 74 YZ250A. So that's what you're looking for. That's a MX250B right there, that engine you're looking at in the picture. But 75 MX250B, 76 YZ250C will have the manifold that will fit your bike and give you the availability of putting on a larger carb. Thanks for the question, Jeff. Steve Bridges, I'm sort of new to Hodakas and I want to freshen up the appearance of this engine. Any advice on the prep of the cases and about the color? Yeah, I've got a couple of things I want to say here. I'll take them in the order that we've put up slides, but there's your engine. Okay, so you want to do the head and you want to do both engine covers. I would recommend vapor blasting. Okay, vapor blasting is a great way to get something as clean as it could possibly be, and it gives a great surface for when you're going to paint it. As far as paint goes, these cases on these Hodakas are a little bit of a brighter silver. A good match to that is something that's available from Eastwood. It's called Alumablast paint. They use it on alternators to cars, and it is a nice shiny silver finish, very close to what you see on the factory Hodaka finish. Most important thing you want to do here is get a manual, and in this picture is why. The shifting mechanism on a Hodaka, go back a picture. On a Hodaka is a little bit different. Most clutch covers or ignition covers, you take off a bike and there's nothing behind it except the clutch and the ignition. When you take a cover off of the left side of a Hodaka, the shifting mechanism comes out with it, and it's a little bit tricky. It's filled with grease. It's got a shaft in there where it moves a shaft in and out of the engine, and that's how it changes the gears. If you're not familiar with this, get yourself a manual before you start to take that apart. It's a little tricky to get apart, and it's even, you got to do it the right way to put it back together too. So, with what I recommended. Get yourself a manual though, to make sure that you know what you're doing when you're taking out. It's not like anything you've never ever seen before if you've never owned a Hodaka. Thanks for the question, Steve. And we've got a question from a very special on checking the pads and hubs all seemed fine. I raced again, and after the first lap or so, the rear brake quickly faded to nothing. What is up? Jordan, the only thing I can really think about is, well, there's a couple of different things. Number one, let's go to the first slide. Your question states that you adjusted the brake, that you had the bolt back out of the brake pedal. So you put that back in and you had the lock nut put on, so you know that could be a problem. And they're both circled in this picture. That wing nut on the bottom of the actuator that connects the rod. There's a spring that goes in front of it. It's visible in the picture on this Mako. Make sure you have that spring on there, and make sure that maybe that rod doesn't have a burn or something. You think you're tightening it up, but it's not really getting enough tension onto the spring to keep it tight. Maybe it's backing off. The only other thing it could possibly be is the actuator at the top. Well, that's the first picture. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, stay here. The actuator at the top, where it's got that little 10 millimeter nut. I mean, maybe the spline is bad there from you jamming on the brakes, or I mean, the bike is 45 years old, 50 years old, whatever it is. Maybe the spline is not necessarily stripped, but maybe it's just starting to wear a bit and you've got some slop in that brake actuator. Now, you also told me in the portion of question, which you sent to me in the mail, just like everybody else does, that the week before you had a problem that the brake was dragging. You were in a GP and you had been riding on 6 mile loops. Now, I don't know this for sure, but I'd like some people to comment if they know. Maybe that brake was dragging for a while and maybe you warped the hub from the heat. You told me that you checked the brake pads. You had new ones put in. You used them on the day you had the first problem. You check them again and you don't see a problem with them. I'm wondering now if maybe all the heat, if you riding with that thing on power and brake drag, could it have warped the brake lining? I don't know for sure. Whoever's watching the show, I would appreciate your comments and we could all see them here. But those are 3 things that visually I could suggest from the outside. However, maybe the lining is bad now that you've had the brake drag for so long. I don't really know, Jordan, but I would check all those things thoroughly. And thank you for the question, Jordan.
Hi, you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. We'll be right back.
We gotta pray, Rick. We gotta
after this
pray.
prayer.
Don't forget to keep sharing the show. We'll have a random share giveaway winner.
Hi, I'm Jeff with Motion Pro, here to introduce you to the Pro Funnel today. Now the Pro Funnel is a very versatile funnel that makes maintenance tasks on your motorcycle easier, cleaner, and more efficient. Now as an overview, the Pro Funnel has a 1 liter capacity with clear graduation marks listed in ounces, cc's, as well as all the common premix ratios used for 2-strokes in the power sports industry. Now diving into the key features of the Pro Funnel, first you have this integrated shutoff valve, which allows you to shut off or meter out the flow of fluid. This ball joint and extended spout allows you to get into tight areas. A powerful magnetic strip is convenient for storage on your toolbox or workbench. And this removable lid keeps dirt and debris out of the funnel. The Pro Funnel has a retail price of $32.99 and can be found at your preferred dealer nationwide, so go get yours today.
That Pro Funnel is awesome. I happen to have one right here in the shop in the What's It Worth segment tonight. We're going to be taking a look at a 1975 Husqvarna CR250 replica section of the show where I encourage you to guess what you think this bike recently sold for. Whoever comes closest, we'll have to do a distinction of saying they got closest without going over. Anyway, I'll tell you a little bit about this bike. It did sell in Southern California on May 6th. And Jordan will go through the slides. I'll tell you a bit more about it. 1975 Husky GP250. An offer here was purchased in 2012 by a vendor, a collector of off-road 90s and 60s and 70s bikes. The bike was restored by the Mayer brothers in Tucson, Arizona from the ground up. The engine is a 6-speed gearbox. It was inspected, it was stress tested, it was rebuilt, and was deemed absolutely perfect. The engine remains taut and powerful. The company list of refurbishments of this bike are as follows. It's got Holman rims laced with Buchanan hubs, Goki air fork caps, a very rare Husqvarna products exhaust, new plastic, rebuilt forks, it has Maguire controls. It's Magura controls and grips. Got new chain and sprocket. Seat professionally was recovered. It's got a steel CR tank, professionally painted with a base coat clear coat. Decals clear coated for protection. S&W rear shocks. What do you think this bike recently sold for? It does look pretty nice. I guess it's got a steel tank. That's why they painted over those knee areas. I thought the bike had a aluminum tank at that point, but maybe not. Anyway, what do you think this bike recently sold for? $7,000, $8,000. This bike sold for $8,900. $8,900. Mikola replica 75 CR250 Husky. Full Circle Racing is still running a great special on powder coating your hubs, just $50 a hub, front and rear. For just $10 more, he'll do the backing plate as well. And this comes in gloss black and a flat black color. Now, whether you're looking for spokes, rims, having your hubs powder coated, Full Circle Racing is your one-stop shop. And I want to wish my friend Fritz Gunther well. He's heading toward Unadilla. I want to mention Fritz Gunther because I know it's Tom McAllister's company, but they're both from the Northwest. And that's just what happened in my mind right now. Circle Racing, Tom McAllister. Get a hold of him. Get the hubs powder coated for any other wheels and rims you might need for any bike. Get a hold of Tom McAllister. Hey, Jordan, I think I forgot something. Did you know? Hey, Jordan, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Jordan, was I supposed to do the random share giveaway? Should I have done that already?
Not till after the Vinco commercial.
After the Vinco commercial?
Yeah.
All right. I'll do it then. I'm all jacked up by caffeine. I got to get back to the show. Did you know? This is something interesting that was sent in to us by our friend Jeff. Jeff has got very interesting. He has a real interesting way of looking at certain things, and I did not know this. And he told me about spokes. Now, you think the threaded end of a spoke is threaded just like with a die or something like that, but it's not. And Jeff wrote this. You'll understand a little bit more about what Jeff is saying. He and his buddy Ron went to a race recently, and a buddy of theirs broke a spoke on a Mako. They had some shorter ones. It was not a big deal. Some longer ones, and it was not a big deal. They cut the spoke, and they got out a die, and they tapped it. I'm sorry, not a die, but a tap, and they tapped the spoke and went to put it into the bike. When they got it in there, they realized it was kind of loose, and they did a little research on that and found that the spoke threads of a motorcycle and a bicycle are rolled. They are not run over with a die like that. They are rolled. Now, Jeff says to us, what does that mean? From an engineering perspective, thread rolling is a cold forming operation in which a blank, such as a spoke, having an outside diameter between the major and the minor diameters of a finished thread is rotated between hardened steel dies that are bearings that reverse thread form. A rolling die penetrates the blank surface from the thread root, and it displaces the metal instead of cutting into it. In other words, it puts force on it to make a thread. It doesn't cut away metal, therefore weakening the spoke or whatever it is that you might be working on. Anyway, metal, like wood, has a grain structure. It is weakened when cut across the grain. However, unlike cut threads, during rolling, the material grain structure is not severed during the threading process. Instead, it reforms into a continuous, unbroken line following the thread contours. Rolled threads have increased resistance to stripping because such failures are compelled to take place across rather than with the grain flow. Very, very interesting information you sent me, Jeff Kokoski. And yeah, you can see there where a cut thread, it's got a higher peak and it goes a little bit deeper in there. Also, you can see the grain where you were talking about that, and you're not really removing metal when you do the pressing process, as opposed to using a die on the thread. So Jeff Kokoski, I want to thank you for sending that in and sharing that with us. Segment, of course, is called Did You Know? And honestly, I didn't know that. I knew Buchanan had a different thread pitch than other spokes like NOS or OEM spokes, but I did not know about that process for rolling spokes. Thank you, Jeff Kokoski. One of my favorite vendors. Why? Because he does such a great job for us on stuff that we send him. Okay? Mark Farriaster, Sunrise Vapor Blasting of Modesto, does a great job on all of our carburetors and so many other things that we work on here in the shop. Whether it's titanium, any type of metal, any type of aluminum, anything that's delicate. Mark Farriaster will put it in that tank of his. It will come out cleaner than it was the day it was brand new. Okay, I've got a bike coming down the pike in just the next couple of days. I've been working on a Harley Baja 100. I'll show you all the parts on that bike in a photograph out on Facebook. But you see all the work that Mark Farriaster did for us here. Does a great job. So whether it floats, flies, or rolls, get a hold of Mark Farriaster at Sunrise Vapor Blasting. Thank you, Mark, for renewing with us. I appreciate that. We are going to take a commercial break, and when we get back there,
Classic and vintage dirt bikes are more than a hobby. It's not just about the ride. It's about the work that goes in. The work that keeps you connected to the ride. It's about bringing the bike back to life and doing it with your own hands. It's about the adrenaline and adventure. And when it comes to putting all the pieces together, only Vinco knows the bikes and parts the way you do. Vinco, keep the ride going.
Tonight's rant is Robbie Vasallo. Robbie Vasallo from the beautiful state of New Jersey. Robbie Vasallo, you are tonight's random share giveaway winner. You will receive stickers like this, compliments of Vinco. Robbie Vasallo, congratulations. Just how I see it, portion of the show tonight, we talked about this a little bit earlier. Ryan Dungey recently came out of retirement, he and Antonio Caroli. Dungey's been doing a great job, finishing 5th, 6th, really qualifying well every week. Now I have read this week that Jason Lawrence is going to come out of retirement. Now I think Jason Lawrence has been retired even longer than Dungey. He did have a pretty good career going back, I think it was, it had to be close to 10 years ago already. But Jason's career was cut short by his off-track antics. He did spend some time in prison, and he was a natural talent. He was an amazing guy. He was from New Jersey. I remember actually seeing Jason Lawrence practice at Englishtown many times on Wednesdays when I would go down there. Anyway, Jason Lawrence thinks he is going to get off the couch and back on a gas for a couple of nationals. I would like to know what you guys think. Do you care that Jason Lawrence is even going to come back? Do you think he should have never quit? What is your opinion on that? To read some of your comments, and I may post them on the Vintage Motocross Q&A page tomorrow. Just as interesting is Jeffrey Hurlings. Jeffrey Hurlings, of course, a Grand Prix racer from Europe, has thrown down the gauntlet with Eli Tomac to run a heads-up race somewhere here in America. I think that Southwick would be a great place to do that. A good sandy track might give them both a chance. But honestly, I don't even know why Eli Tomac, a very accomplished American racer, both Supercross and Motocross, I'm not even sure why he would accept that challenge unless, I don't know. I mean, what are we doing here? Is it becoming like the Housewives of New Jersey or Beverly Hills, where people are throwing down gauntlets and challenging each other to do things just to get ratings to go up? I don't really know what's going on here, but if Jeffrey Hurlings really wanted to race against Tomac, why doesn't he come over here and race a season? You know, race the Lucas Oil Motocross season, and let him race against Tomac and Anderson and maybe Roxon if he's still around, and everybody else that's out there. I don't know if there's any need for a one-on-one type of race between Tomac and Jeffrey Hurlings. I'd like to know your thoughts on that as well. So, J-Law, Jason Lawrence possibly coming back for a bit, and the heads-up race between Jeffrey Hurlings and Eli Tomac. Your thoughts, please. Type in your comments. I'm always interested in seeing what you have to say. This Week in Motocross History is brought to you by Racer X Magazine, available on your newsstand and online now. Racer X Magazine, just a great publication with a real nice variety, of course, of the modern stuff. But Scott Wallenberg, Davey Coombs, old-time race guys, they give us a nice variety of some of the vintage stuff and things that are going on in the vintage world as well. But right now, let's take a look at what happened in motocross history. It was yesterday, Wednesday, in June 20th, I think it was yesterday's date. And it was the day that Marty Moats shocked the world. In one of the most shocking upsets in motocross history, the LOP Yamaha privateer Marty Moats became the first American to ever win the USGP in Carlsbad. Moats did it with 1-1 sweep. It was the one and only win in the journeyman's career. Marty, who was born and very close, simply ran away with both motos. Fellow U.S. rider Dan overall with a 3-3 finish that day. In the 250 support class, Brian Myerscough won. Got a great interview with Brian Myerscough at Vintage Cross Radio. But yeah, pretty much. 1982, it was Father's Day in America and time for another USGP at Carlsbad. By this point, Waltzink was done in the Americans had most likely taken over Team Honda's Danny Magoo Chandler won the overall with a 1-5 score in a surprisingly wet race for Carlsbad. Rained down there that day. There's a picture of Danny on the day. 1982, Magoo takes Carlsbad. 1993. I thought Hangtown actually much earlier in the year, but 1993, the fourth round of the AMA Motocross invaded Hangtown and the riding a Kawasaki. It was Mike Kudrowski taking the 250 overall with a 1-1 sweep. Steve Lamson and Jeff Stanton finished second and third. I always thought Hangtown ran a little bit earlier in the year, but who knows? Back then, 1993, a long time ago. Oh, we've got the announcements. Okay, Jordan, let's run this video. You know, there's an old saying, says that opportunity seldom knocks twice. Well, opportunity is going to knock twice for you. And if you didn't make the International Motocross Museum fundraiser last year, this is not something you want to miss this year. It's coming up on September 21st. It's just a few days before the Motocross the Nations, which happens about 2 hours away. So if you are looking to see everything that has to do with motocross and the history of it, get your ticket for the International Motocross Museum now. There's a hotel close by to the event. It is a Sheraton. Go over to the International Motocross Museum page and you'll get all the information and get yourself a ticket. Bob Hanna, Roger DeCoster, Ricky Johnson, Garrett Wolsink, and so many more are going to be there this year at this event. It truly is opportunity knocking for a second time, and you'll get to see the most amazing bikes in the world. And I guarantee you're going to see a lot of your friends there too from all around America. So get over there, get a ticket. If you don't think you could make it, I strongly, strongly recommend you get over to the International Motocross Museum website, get yourself a hat, a poster, a shirt. Do all you can to help this cause. This museum is going to happen. And when it does, you're going to want to be able to say that you were a part of it. Thank you, Tom Miller and Terry Good. It will be happening September 21st. I will be there with a few friends of my own, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. So thank you, Terry Good, Tom Miller, International Motocross Museum. We've got a race coming up this weekend. That is the Midwest Vintage Motocross. It's happening on Lean Road in Hixton, Wisconsin. That is June 25th and 26th. It all begins on Friday. The gates open, and then you've got racing for Saturday and Sunday. So if you're on your way, have a great time. If you're not, and you're within the Hixton, Wisconsin area, please get over there to help support that. You know what else is going on this weekend? Unadilla. I want to know if anybody's on their way to that. And if you are, and you're watching the show tonight, maybe you can get some pictures or some video. I hope everybody's enjoying the Unadilla Rewind. That's happening this weekend as well. I've got one more announcement, Jordan, and I don't want to forget it. So let's just back up for a second. I got this in the mail today from my friend Bill Naselrod. It is the announcement for the 2023 York Swap Meet. I will be there as your judge again this year, and I've also been asked to speak at the banquet as well. So it is January 22nd, 8 to 3 at the York Fairground. I will be there. I'm hoping to see all my Midwest friends once again. Craig Smolin, Jeff Kokoski, Bill Naselrod, and so many more. So put it on your calendar. Bill just sent me this today. I'll have it on the board behind me pretty soon. And yeah, York Swap Meet. A lot of fun in the middle of the winter out there in York, Pennsylvania. Finish line brought to you by Northwest Mako CZ. Don't forget to get a hold of Alan Brown. Alan Brown's got a special going on this week on 30mm carburetors, Makunis. He's only got a few left. These things usually go for about $138 to $142 somewhere in there. Alan Brown blowing them out at $103. $103, 30mm carburetors. Get a hold of Alan Brown, Northwest Mako CZ. T-shirts and hoodies are still available from Vintage Motocross Q&A. They come in white and gray with our logo across the front, my autograph across the back. Just $19.99 while they last. Vintage Motocross Q&A T-shirts. Vintage Motocross sponsorship opportunities are available, and I am in the works for bringing a new sponsor on board. One of them is from Northern California. I'll tell you more about him when I get a little bit closer. But another guy who's going to be coming on does 3D printing. He has sent me samples. I'm not going to show them to you just yet. He has sent me samples. I've seen pictures of them as well. We've had a lot of correspondence by email. And in the very, very near future, we're going to have a really good sponsor who will be making A lot of the things that you love made out of rubber, made out of plastic, and he does them in 3D. It's going to be a great way for you to have an additional way to get parts for your bike. But in the meantime, if you are out there and you want to reach 20,000 people a week, 85,000 people a month just on Facebook, then there's YouTube and, of course, the 2 television stations, which we are on in Long Island, New York, LTV. Get a hold of me. I'll get you a sponsorship proposal package. You can see the same benefits as all of our other sponsors. Many of them have been with us for as much as 2 years. I want to thank them all for the support for the show. I think that about wraps it up for this week's episode of Vintage Motocross Q&A. If you're in Unadilla, take some pictures, send me some video. I'd love to know more about what's going on there. I don't know if he's going to be able to get out here tonight. Gino! Boy, almost as fast as last week. Thanks for watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. Gino, good job. Good night, everybody. Congratulations, Robbie Vasallo. Get me your address. I'll get you that sticker sheet.